I need your help to grow the New Hampshire Business Show. Head over to patreon.com/nhbusinessshow and help support the show today. With the money we gain from this, we put it into, things like running the studio every month, advertising, things that are kind of like monthly charges for us. Since we don't charge our guests to come on the show, and they provide a lot of great content for everyone else, we would love the opportunity to, reach out, support the show, so we can all help each other out. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hampshire Business Show. My name is Chris Pastrana, and today we're here with John Kauffman of Lammore. How you doing, John?
Chris, I'm great. How are you?
Doing very well. So I'm excited. The minute you start talking about sales, I perked up a little bit. I'm like, I love sales. This is fun.
You're not the person that typically tells me that I've perked them up when I've started to talk. So I'm pleased about that.
Yeah,
I don't get that a lot.
Yeah,
I'm lying.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
Kind of your history, what got you into sales training and all the cool stuff you do.
Sure. Well, you might have guessed, and as your audience might guess, that I'm not originally from these parts.
Probably.
Yeah. And don't worry, I haven't kind of come to take it, old England come to take New England back. But I've been here actually on the seacoast for the last 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Been involved in the training and education market for a long time, probably when you were the apple in your father's eye, when I started. Originally in sales roles in the technology training marketplace, and then went into sales management, and then I got involved in investing in a business in the UK back in 2000, which we were very successful with. We took that from £4 million, so about $6 million, up to about $100 million over about 6 years, and then sold that to a private equity company. And from there, I then invested in a similar type of business that was based in Salem, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Which brought me here to New Hampshire. I'd been to the States a lot, backwards and forwards, both for business and also for pleasure as well, over the years, but I'd never been to New Hampshire, so it was the first time I'd came to New Hampshire and settled on the seacoast, and here I am 9 years later, still living on the seacoast. That business I originally invested in, we did a trade sale on that, and we sold that, and then I did this joint venture with my partners in the UK with Lammore to actually do something that is, for me, it's incredible, because sales has been my career, whether that's internal or external sales, and I'm sure we'll talk about my definition of selling, because it's probably slightly different to what everybody would understand or have a view on. And I'm now in the position where I'm actually involved in the training and education marketplace, which has been my career, but actually around my real passion, which is developing people to be more successful and their organizations to be more successful through sales.
Yeah.
It's
pretty cool. So I guess we'll start there. Your definition of sales.
My definition of sales.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good point, because if you go and look in the Oxford English Dictionary or Merriam-Webster's and look for the definition of sales, it's got this really dry terminology of in exchange for money and goods and services, etc. When in actual fact that's not what selling's about at all. That's kind of a result of that process of selling. For me, the definition of sales is to positively influence people. Mm-hmm. And it's important, I think, kind of to break that down. It's positive because we need to enjoy the experience. As salespeople, we need to enjoy the experience. As buyers, we need to enjoy the experience. It needs to be constructive. I actually think that the sales process is as much as an education as it is actually looking to sell a product, because we're helping people understand what their needs are. They may have known needs, but the likelihood is they've got unknown needs as well, and they want to be educated around that, whatever your products and services. So we've got to enjoy that, so it's got to be positive. And of course, if it's positive, then people will want to come back and do it again, because that's what we do, things that we enjoy. And that's really quite important, because there's some interesting stats that say that selling to an existing customer is about 12 times less expensive than it is to selling to a new customer. So we really want to kind of harvest the people that we have been selling to and make sure that that experience for them is as enjoyable as possible. And most importantly, we've done what we said we could do, when we could do it, and how we could do it, and so on. So that's the one aspect. Influence, one of the questions I get asked a lot, if I'm at a party or something, and people say to me, "Oh, what do you do?" And I always say I'm a salesperson. They kind of take 3 steps back, and I check my armpits to see if I put deodorant on that night. Because everybody has this kind of view of what a salesperson should sound and look like. And one of the things that they always say to me is, "I could never do that." That could never be for me. And the reality is that actually not only can you do it, but you're actually doing it all the time. You're just not necessarily doing it in a professional environment, because this whole process of influencing people is something, it's an innate skill that we've got. We've been doing that since we kind of were born. I mean, admittedly it was pretty crude, in terms of, you want your diaper changing, for English listeners, nappy, you scream and shout and bang your feet, etc. But as we got older, we actually honed those skills, and we understood how we had to influence people. We also understood how we were influenced ourselves, kind of teachers at school. We all had teachers at school that took a really dry subject that we didn't particularly like, but they brought it to life because of how they influenced us to get our heads around it. And other subjects that we might have really liked were made dead boring for people who weren't in a position to be able to inspire us. So, we kind of got an understanding of that. By the time we got to the age of 16, we started to get kind of a little bit more sophisticated. We could end up getting, the family car for the weekend. We knew between our parents who was the decision maker and the decision influencer, and we knew how to approach both. We knew how to get advocates and referrals, and we also knew that we had to give something back in return as well, if people were going to deal with us. So this whole process of I can't sell, I don't want to sell, and I don't think I ever could. Well, funnily enough, actually, you've been doing it all the time with with your nearest and dearest, with your friends, with your work colleagues, because you've been going through a process of influencing people. And if you've ever had a partner, a significant other, or a spouse, then you've actually gone through that process, and they've signed the biggest order, the one for life. And that's what selling is all about. It's about influencing people. I do a little exercise actually, Chris, which is quite fun. Which if you go out, I'll take a group of salespeople and I'll take them out into the street, and we'll be stood on the sidewalk, and I'll take the first 5 people that come to us randomly, and say to them, ask them the question, how would you like to be sold to? What do you think the answer is?
Oh, what?
The answer is, I don't.
Okay. That makes sense.
Sure. And then take the next 5 people and say to them, how would you like to be influenced? And the answer to that question is, actually, it's a lot of different answers. It could be, oh, what do you mean by influence? It could be, oh, well, I like this or I like that. The difference is that we start conversation, because people don't feel threatened if they're being influenced in the same way as they might do with sales. So that's kind of my definition of selling.
Okay.
And in terms of what we do as a business through the Principal Sales Series, which is fundamentally the curriculum, the content that we have, that we deliver in a lot of ways, it's all about supporting people from a sales perspective, salespeople, to be in a position to be able to influence people professionally and influence them successfully, and that they enjoy that experience. It's based on 16 words, which is really very simple for everybody to be able to get their head round, which is that people buy when a compelling need is met by a credible solution with perceived value, and that is what our philosophy is all about, and the training programs that we deliver online and face to face in the classroom are about kind of dissecting that and providing people with a framework to be able to utilize to really be successful.
Okay, so this is funny. So the reason in the beginning I said that I was excited when you started talking about sales is I run into this a lot, especially with my demographic of like listeners and people I bring on. I don't know if they forget or they just don't want to recognize that they're salespeople. Like like I a lot of business owners who are like, no, I'm not a salesperson. I'm this, and I'm like, you gotta.
So you've just so what you've just picked one of the great sore things that I have, because this is interesting. So there's a word that people like to call themselves, and if you go on LinkedIn and you put this word in the search, it'll come up with millions of people that have got this particular word in their title.
Yeah.
And you know what that word is?
What was it?
Entrepreneur.
Oh.
I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah, or an intrapreneur, which is that kind of hit us, in the last 20 years. People who act in an entrepreneurial fashion, but within a corporate organisation. So this is my soapbox.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got to tell you, for people that are listening to this, I'm stood on the table whilst I'm saying this. People watching know that that's not true. So yeah, this is my big soapbox. People want to be entrepreneurs, and great. They've got great attitude. They've got great desire. They want to be in control of their own destiny. They want to, they want to work hard. They want to, create wealth for themselves, shareholder value, whatever you want to call it. Okay, but fundamentally, they want to be in a position to make a difference for themselves, their families, and also for their marketplaces that they're selling into. Yeah. And of course, there's some wonderful examples of great entrepreneurs, some of which we, kind of use to model ourselves on. In the UK, you've got people like Sir Richard Branson. In the United States, the list is, as long as your arm. But this is my real bugbear, is that, people will go to college to learn how to operate in a business environment. They don't teach you anything about entrepreneurialism, by the way, in college. In fact, I think they do everything they can not to teach you about entrepreneurialism. But they'll teach you how to put marketing plans together. They'll teach you to put business plans together. They'll teach you how to read a set of accounts and profit and loss and all those things, etc. But one thing that nobody in this entrepreneurial bracket understands is that they need to have professional sales training. That if you are an entrepreneur, at your very heart, you have to be a salesperson, and you have to do that well. And if you don't believe that, don't put any money into a business, because you will lose it. It's as simple as that. A great analogy I've got, you must watch Shark Tank.
Yeah, a little bit,
Yeah, of course. So, I love Shark Tank. It's great entertainment. The sharks are quite funny between them, etc. But it's also interesting seeing people, actually people like me, ordinary people in the street that want to develop businesses for themselves. And what's really interesting is you can take somebody that can walk into the Shark Tank looking for a deal, and they may not be very good at presenting. They actually may not have the greatest idea or product or service or whatever, etc. They may have the worst halitosis that you've ever seen, and they do their pitch, and the sharks sit there and listen, and then the sharks ask them one question: what are the sales? It's typically the first question they ask. What are the sales? Now, anybody who's listening to this who wants to be an entrepreneur, doesn't think sales is important, it's the first question they ask. What are the sales?
Yeah.
If the sales are 500,000, 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million, sometimes more, etc., bang! Immediately, the halitosis has gone away, the bad presentation's gone away, the challenges that might be with the product and service. Because what they've demonstrated is they've been able to take a product to market, and they've been able to have that product adopted, and people have been prepared to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And that's the platform for business. You can make, people can learn to be better presenters. They can be in roles that are more focused on what their strengths are, all those kind of things. But fundamentally, the thing that is so important, the foundation of everything, the lifeblood of every business is sales. Yeah. But nobody goes out and particularly independent entrepreneurs, they're not investing in how they're developing their skills to sell, and in so many corporate roles or business roles, finance, legal, HR, there is something called continuing education. You know, I always use the analogy, you know, when was the last time you ever got on a plane where the pilot had some training once? Never. Why? Because every year that pilot, no matter how many hours of flying he's got under his belt, has to get himself in a simulator, and he has to be trained. He has to go through continuous education. He does it, or she does it, so that they can prove that they know what they know, and they do it so that they develop and build on what they already know. And that happens in so many different roles, IT, all over.
Yeah.
But not in sales. And without selling, you've got no legals, you've got no HR, you've got no marketing, you've got nothing. You've got no business. So for me, this whole evangelistic approach that I take, you know, I should have come in with a white suit, but this whole evangelistic approach that I take, it's as much about demonstrating to people that they have this need for formal education development. You know, they'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on college educations, okay, to develop skills that will enable them to perhaps create their own business.
Yeah.
But they won't go out and spend $2,000 or $3,000 and have a formal training program in sales, which is the only thing that's going to make that business come to fruition.
Yeah.
Help me.
Oh, that's too funny.
I won't be investing in businesses like that.
Yeah, that's funny because there's a lot there. You're
yeah,
right.
sorry,
like,
I do go on, don't I?
No,
but I'm very
fine,
passionate about it.
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's why I was super excited about this because I've had this conversation so many times.
Yeah.
Because I speak to a lot of businesses, so
sure.
every once in a while they ask me advice, and like the first thing I tell them is like, can you sell it? Like before you do anything, can you listening, like can you go out, whatever product or idea you have, can you sell it to somebody?
Yeah.
If you can't, then don't do it.
Well, and you know, one of the questions I get quite a lot is people will turn around and say, "Well, I've developed a business and I've never had any formal sales training, and I don't feel that I'm selling to people and so on, etc." And sure, I understand that that's the case, and there are some things that, you know, kind of create a bit of momentum around them, and there are things that we do to help create demand, you know, like networking and referral and so on, and some advertising, etc. But let's not be confused, because the one question that I always ask all salespeople, and as you can imagine, I work with sales organisations in large corporates, right through to kind of private individuals, speak to a lot of people, and there's one question I always ask. Honestly, answer me the question. Are you selling? Or are you order taking?
Yeah.
There's a big difference between the two.
Yeah.
And, you know, anybody can order take. That's about customer service, okay? Give me a salesperson that's order taking, then I'd be expecting them to upsell. Because they've got somebody who's come in already with the need, they want to buy the product.
Yeah.
Okay, how do we maximize that? You know, how do we create a long-term relationship? That's where selling comes into that order-taking process. But you need to understand how to do that. And it's really important that people aren't confused between these two things. You know, when I'm working with large corporate organizations, I always ask a question, you know, do you think your sales targets as a measurement, are they a reflection of opportunity? Or are they simply kind of ink marks on a piece of paper that meet what the need is for the business to sustain itself? And, you know, what do you mean by that? Well, you know, you've got a business here that's kind of got revenues of 50 million, and you're working in a marketplace that's worth 2.5 billion.
Yeah.
So you've got a very small slice of it. What are you doing to understand how you can get a bigger slice of that? And do the sales targets reflect that opportunity, or are the sales targets just kind of an internal measurement, you know, to kind of continue what you're doing and what you've always been doing?
Yeah.
And in many instances, of course, the answer to the question is, well, no, the sales targets are based on, you know, we have a budget and then we divide it by the number of salespeople, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's fine. I've got nothing wrong with that process. The problem is that what you've then got is salespeople that achieve that number aren't necessarily being successful at fulfilling opportunity, and you're not doing anything to support them, develop their skills to be able to take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Yeah, definitely. Because the reason I like sales so much is, like I said, but was we were talking beforehand, I sell cars, just kind of on the side, a little bit.
Yes.
And it's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy sales because there shouldn't be a limit. So when you put, like, almost like you were saying, you put this arbitrary number there, like, oh, you need to hit this number in sales, like, well, can you do more than that? Like, because you're right, there's more opportunity to be had there, and, properly training your salespeople and then pushing them with, higher quota, higher commission, you could really.
Well, yeah, that's it. You mentioned a really good point, because we all think that salespeople are motivated by money.
Mm-hmm.
Not true. I'm going to sit back and use some of academia to help me out here. I don't know if you're familiar with Hertzberg's two-factor theory, but he has a two-factor theory, and that two-factor theory is that there are motivational factors that people have, and that there are hygiene factors that people have.
Yeah.
And motivational factors are things like being developed and training and job progression and so on. And hygiene factors is where actually the money falls into.
Yeah.
Because the money is a result of something else that you've done.
Yeah.
Well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It just so happens, and there are some sales organisations that actually don't pay a commission. They just give everybody a basic salary. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute I necessarily agree with that, but there are different ways of doing it. But fundamentally, money isn't the biggest motivator for a salesperson.
Yeah.
And they might tell you it is because they think they should. But the reality is salespeople are no different from anybody else in terms of what they're looking for out of their career. They want to be developed, they want progression, they want promotion, they want status and so on, and all those kind of things, and respect of the people around them. And if they had none of that, but they were earning more than anybody else in the organisation, to be quite honest with you, yeah, okay, they might have the nicest car in the car park, but they won't be as satisfied or as fulfilled as the people who do have those motivational factors. And that's so. It's also a very interesting thing to kind of look at what motivates us to sell.
Yeah, because in some cases, I guess it could be, but if the money isn't the big motivator, like, why do we push quotas so hard? Shouldn't that just be kept kind of internal so that we know we can judge the company properly? But, like, don't push it so hard on the salespeople, and instead focus on the training and push them to do the best they can, and just don't worry about the quotas.
So this is the point. Out of my other pocket, I get soapbox number 2 out.
Okay.
So soapbox number 2 is all about sales leadership.
Yeah.
Because that speaks to the point that you've just made, the question you've asked. And quite frankly, sales leadership is not great. I apologise if I've offended anybody out there that's in a sales management position. But quite frankly, it could be a lot better. It's not necessarily sales leaders' fault. I actually think that the role of sales management within an organisation is the worst role to have.
Yeah.
Quite honestly. And I'll tell you the reason why. It's because you're kind of sandwiched. So when everything's going well and the senior management, the board members, all kind of sat around the board table, etc. When everything's going well, they're kind of patting themselves on the back. Yeah. Because it's what they've, it's what they've generated, what they've created, etc. When things aren't going well, it's the sales manager's fault.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that pressure is then placed on the sales manager, and the sales manager then reflects that pressure onto his salespeople. His salespeople, or her salespeople, don't enjoy or respect the fact that they're getting that pressure, so then they get the sandwich effect.
Yeah.
They get it from both sides. And there's kind of some reasons for that. I mean, obviously there's some interesting leadership philosophies around that.
Yeah.
But one of the other issues, I think, particularly today, and I've been around long enough, as you can tell, to remember when we had no technology, in sales organisations. And what I mean by no technology, I mean the first piece of technology I ever got was a pager. I thought I was, been walking around with this pager on my waistband, clipped to my waistband, so my office could get in touch with me and beat me at any time. I thought it was like being in the FBI. I thought it was the most wonderful thing. I've never seen anything like it in my life. With technology today, what this does is it creates a lot of information for us. Creates a lot of statistics, and it creates this great desire to go into analysis paralysis. Yeah. Now, absolutely, that data and information can provide us with insights that we've never had before, and there's absolutely a role and a place for that. And listen, I use it in our own business, kind of all the time. Mm-hmm. But speaking to this point about, are we selling to a manufactured target, or are we actually selling to opportunity? Fundamentally, for me, that all depends on how we inspire people and the tools we use to inspire people.
Yeah.
And how we go about supporting them as part of that inspirational process. That's the and throwing a spreadsheet at them, with a bunch of numbers on it because of some analysis that we've done that's just been shot out of the sales enablement platform that we've got within our organisation. That's not inspirational. That's not kind of giving desire and hunger. It's not leading from the front. No. And I'm a great believer in kind of looking at analogies. Here there is a fantastic analogy of great leadership, particularly around team sports, as an example. With a gentleman called Bill Belichick. And what I find fascinating about Bill Belichick is that when I see him interviewed, I've never met the man, it would be a great honour to do that, but when I see him interviewed, he kind of looks quite a dour, and that could just be his relationship with the media, but the bottom line is he's not Mr. Personality, is he?
No.
But by gosh, do the people that are around him, the team, the squad, the backroom staff, the coaches, and so on, etc. He inspires them. A great comparison would be the great Sir Alex Ferguson, who was before he retired the manager of Manchester United, the soccer team in the United Kingdom, who managed that team for 26 years. Again, quite a dour Scot.
Yeah.
Was Sir Alex, but the people around him, by God, they bought into him, and he inspired them to give of their best. And yes, there was a place, and there is a place to kind of sticking a chart up on the wall and going through different things, etc. But that isn't really the inspiration. That's kind of, the coaching, that's the technical stuff. The thing that, kind of really makes us all work on a day-to-day basis and kind of get out of bed are the things that kind of inspire our attitudes to do things that we've never done before, and in many instances, particularly around sales, are to do things that we feel uncomfortable with or we have a great apprehension about. We need within sales organisations for inspirational leadership to give us courage. To give us the courage to do the things that we may not feel very comfortable about. And that's one of the roles I think is really, really important with sales leadership. And it's actually really important as far as our programs are concerned. Because what we're doing is we're giving people the knowledge, that knowledge transfer, which helps develop their courage. And we're doing it very specifically in a very inspirational, as you can tell, I'm very dour and boring, so I'm not very good at it. But bottom line, we're doing it in a very inspirational way because we want people to be entertained by it. Because the things that we enjoy, going back to where we really started, we will embrace.
Yeah. Very cool. Do you need a new website? Like myself, and probably like some of you, that's probably a yes. So head over to nhbusinessshow.com/Zimventures to check out the options he has available for you. You got state-of-the-art design. All websites come with free SSL hosted, which is going to be huge coming for SEO and Google here in the future. Redundant server architecture, reasonably priced, yearly hosting options. So you have everything you need to run your website and to create a new one for you. He's a fantastic developer. He's been doing it in, I think, 18 or so years now, so he knows what he's doing. He's been at it for a while. He's put together some great websites, and he's putting together mine. So I will say it is definitely worth the time to reach out. So head over to nhbusinessshow.com/Zimventures. Check them out.
Well, it's interesting actually, because there's a great point there actually with what you've just said. I speak one-to-ones. I do big conferences and so on. I do one of the things I do for a conference is where I actually take the movie Hitch. Mm-hmm. We call it Pitch, but we take the movie Hitch, and I take 6 or 7 clips from that movie, and then relate them to a professional sales environment. Because it's all about, kind of that relationship building. It's all about differentiating ourselves. Yeah. And don't let me go before I've talked about differentiation, because that's hobby horse number 3. Okay. And we must talk about that. But the reality is I have these kind of conversations with people all the time. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Nobody sits there and turns around to me and says, "John, you're wrong." And that's not because I'm always right. It's because, actually, a lot of this stuff makes sense. But the difference is, whether you agree with it or not, but the difference is, people don't put it into reality. Yeah. Every plan needs to be executed. Every plan needs to be implemented. There's no question about that. And I can have this conversation as long as I need to, until I'm kind of old and grey. But there is a community of people out there that will nod their head and never do anything about it. And there's a great phrase, great saying, which I always like, which is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
That's pretty good.
You have to make change.
Yeah.
And you have to implement some of this stuff. And people will go to Barnes & Noble or they'll buy a book on sales. Mm-hmm. There was an interesting question on a LinkedIn post on my feed the other day, which was, are books on sales of any value? Absolutely, of course they are. I don't know how you choose one. You go to Barnes & Noble and you kind of wander up and down that aisle, and you've got a whole range of different titles. I'm not sure the process that you go through to actually choose something that's the right thing for you. But to do that in isolation, I've got people, look how many books I've got on sales on my, on my shelf. That's great. That's lovely. I go, hang on, and all the dust comes off them, Yeah. You need to do something that's continuing. You need to do something that's sustainable. With the solutions that we have, our business was created and founded in the UK. It was created on the back of a sales book, which was written by the founder of the business, Mark Blackmore, who's my partner in the US business, along with Simon Roscoe. And Mark wrote a book called The Single Sales Principle, which was very successful. And off the back of that, he created a classroom training curriculum. Mm-hmm. And that classroom training curriculum has been enormously successful within many, many organizations around the world, and there's a fabulous client base, from large tech organizations like Google through to house building companies, manufacturing companies, really across the board, all around this principal selling series, where the 16 words people buy when when they've got a compelling need that's met by a credible solution with perceived value. And what we've done is we've also repurposed that content into what we call a supported study online, where it's not just about e-learning, which is great, it's interactive and it's got videos and presentations and assignments, etc. But what we do is we dovetail that with live webinars, and through the learning management system that it's delivered from, the learners have direct access to a tutor or instructor through the messaging.
No, it's pretty
So
good.
you've got weekly live webinars, which are synchronous, two-way, okay, and then you've got this ongoing messaging, etc., and then you've got the self-study, and it's a really, really cool program, and we also deliver that in the classroom as well.
Yeah.
For face-to-face. And one of the reasons why we went into online is because we wanted to reduce the barrier to entry for people taking professional sales training.
Yeah.
But we wanted to do it based on all the success that we'd had out of the classroom model. We didn't want it, because it's online, it's the light version. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's why we do that live interaction with the webinars, etc., because it means we're replicating a classroom environment, if you will.
Okay. Cool. So you brought up a point I wanted to actually hit on it before we run out of time. Differentiating yourself.
Yeah.
So just talking about sales trainers, I see tons of them online. Like, everyone has their own sales training program and stuff. And like, how do you differentiate yourself from them? Like, to show that we actually know what we're talking about. We've done it. We got some really good testimonials up here with some big names as I was looking at earlier.
Yeah, sure.
But like, even then down to the normal, like a car salesman or someone like me, where you're trying to differentiate yourself between all these other people and, make a good name for yourself.
Well, I mean, there's two or three answers I have to that question. The first one is that when I sit down in front of a prospective client for the very first time, I have to be the best salesman in the room.
Yeah.
And if they don't feel that and they don't believe that, they ain't going to buy sales training off me.
Yeah.
That's point number one.
Yeah.
We're not doing this because we think it's better than opening a coffee shop. We're doing it because it's something that we're very passionate about, and that then moves on to the other reason why people buy from us. People buy from us, and actually people buy from your listeners. They may not do it consciously. We actually ask people to make this conscious decision. They buy because we have a shared set of beliefs, bottom line. In the way we go about selling what we do, which also supports that differentiation. We do this quite overtly because I want to make the point. I will sit down in front of somebody for the very first time and they'll say, yeah, so tell me about your business. And I say, okay, I'd love to tell you about the business, but let's just take a step back. One of the things I do want to tell you about, because it's going to frame how our discussions are going to go, I want to tell you why people buy from us today. And people buy from us today because we have a shared set of beliefs. And those shared set of beliefs for us is that we can make salespeople and the organizations achieve more through having a professional learning and development program. And that's a really important belief for us to be able to share. Yeah. We can then talk about how we do it and what we do, but to start with, let's agree that we're both in the same place. Do you, Mr. Customer, believe that your people can be more successful, they can achieve more, support growing your business through a professional, continual and sustainable learning and development process around sales? And if the answer to that question is no, actually I don't know why I'm sat there. And I would ask the question, so why am I here? Yeah. Okay. Now that in itself is very differentiating, but it speaks to the heart of why people buy from us, is because we start from the position of that we have a shared belief. Now, I get it that doesn't necessarily work if you're selling cars, but it could, because it could be adapted around that. Yeah. Okay. There's no question of that. And then we'll start talking about the how and the why. But, you talk about this differentiation. I mean, I have people sell to me all the time. But I actually hope that people stop cold calling me, because it always turns into a lesson. Because the fact of the matter is I would say off the top of my head that at least 75% of salespeople in the world, and actually in the United States, I think they're worse. And you might say to me, why is that, John? And I'll tell you that. I'll tell you my thoughts around that. They all sound the same. Yeah. Everybody sounds the same. beats the living daylights out of me, you know, and I pick up the phone. Hello, it's John. Oh, you know, my name is so-and-so, and I'm from, and we do, and etc., etc., you know, and it's, you know, there's nothing differentiating, there's nothing that's going to inspire me within the first 15, 20 seconds to be able to have to actually kind of invest my time in a conversation. And one of the reasons for that as well is, you know, it's one of the things I always say to our clients: do you do any secret shopper stuff? Go and ring your competition as a secret shopper and see what they sound like.
Yeah.
And you tell me whether you think that's good or not, and measure it against how you think your people sound.
Yeah.
And they'll do that. You know, they'll ring and say, oh, you know, and interested in X, Y, and Z. They go, they're terrible. Yeah, now ring your own people and find out. Guess what? They sound exactly the same. That's where I come in. Yeah, it's because I'm providing real proof of it could be significantly better.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's right. There is kind of I hear it when telemarketers all the time. Like, that's how you just know when you pick up the phone if it's a telemarketer or not. Like, they all have the exact same script that they thought worked 20, 30 years ago and hasn't changed. Car salesmen are exactly the same way, which is why the industry is hated so much. Like, they have the same way of speaking. Just, you know that it's just scripted and it's not real. So it's like, it's a problem.
It's an enormous problem. I mean, what's even more of a problem are the companies that think that they can do that by a recorded message, by the way. You know, which actually, that's the other thing. You know, I'll pick up the phone and they've got this technology these days where, you know, you say hello and it kind of automatically responds back as hello. And for the first 10 seconds, you think you're having a conversation with a real person, and then you realise this is a recording. And oh, I'm going to think really favourably towards your company because you've taken the time to play me a recording. You know, I mean, it's crazy stuff. But you know, you're absolutely right. There is no differentiation. Now, the point I made before is where I actually think salespeople in the United States are, for example, not as good at this kind of stuff as, say, people in the United Kingdom, is actually because of opportunity. You know, if you look, you know, I think the GDP of the United States is somewhere in the region of about $19 trillion. In the United Kingdom, I think the GDP is about $3 to $4 trillion. The GDP per capita is significantly greater over here. What does that mean? It means there's more money, there's more opportunity. When there's more money and there's more opportunity, guess what? It's complacency.
Yeah, they get lazy.
They get lazy. Absolutely right. Because, you know, it's like buses. You know, there'll be another one along in a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, not in New Hampshire, but yeah. Yeah, there will be another one along in a minute. And what that creates, and this is why inspirational sales leadership is so important, what it does is it means that there are no consequences for actually not taking advantage of the sales opportunities that come to you, and not differentiating, because you know there's going to be another one in a minute, along in a minute, or you can find another one.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a significant issue. It really is. And the only way, I mean, I can go and stand up in front of anybody and speak for an hour on this subject, and I can inspire them, and I can entertain them, and I can, you know, hopefully, you know, give them a great experience. But the fact of the matter is, I'm only doing that for an hour. The likelihood, and there's loads of statistics out there that suggest that actually they'll have forgotten everything I've said, or 70 to 80% of it within a week.
Yeah.
You know. So what needs to come, what needs to come about is actually how do you implement a program where you can have a distributed knowledge transfer experience over a period of time that drips this information to them and provides frameworks for people to be able to use, like a roadmap, you know.
Yeah.
What did I do today? You know, I had to drive to Bedford to come and see you. I've been to Bedford a couple of times before, but I stick it in my GPS.
Yeah.
That's my roadmap. Okay, we provide people with that roadmap for the sales process. Gives them something to hold on to. You know, on my GPS, if there's an accident, it'll give me an alternative route.
Yeah,
that's what we do.
Yeah,
we provide alternative ways to go about overcoming, you know, the challenge of how we make the most of our sales opportunity.
Okay, pretty cool. Yeah, so if I go any further, we're going to run over time.
Sure.
So we'll have to do this
I told
again
you this
sometime.
was part one.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime. This is actually really, really knowledgeable. I quite enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So,
please. Only quiet.
Oh, yeah. Very much.
Thank you.
Probably the best one today so far.
It's the only one.
Second. So, thank you everyone for watching, and thank you, John, for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Chris. Thanks for inviting me. It's great to see you and talk to everybody.
Yeah, it's actually nice to run into other people who enjoy sales and see the value. I don't run into that very often around here, so it's kind of refreshing.
Well, I hope I can take my evangelistic approach and spread the word, and you'll help me do that.
I hope so, and that's our goal too. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we're going to roll out here with a word from our sponsors, and I will see you guys in the next episode. If you head over to nhbusinessshow.com/self-author, you'll get your chance at 2 self-authorship programs. So you can buy one for yourself and for a friend at the same time for the same low price. It saves you a ton of money and give the gift of self-improvement to somebody else. So nhbusinessshow.com/self-author and get started.